It's time for Business Minds Coffee Chat, an inspiring show about the journey to personal and professional growth. And now, your host, Jay Shear.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am your host, Jay Shear, and I am super excited today. I've got a fantastic guest in the studio with me. My guest today is a fourth-generation Floridian who grew up in rural Madison County, where he served as deputy sheriff for 10 years, and then as chief of the Florida Highway Patrol for 19 years. He's a Rotarian, has served on the Flagler County School Board for almost a year, an appointment made by Governor DeSantis, and is currently an associate vice president with HNTB Corporation, an engineering consultant. And in March, President Trump nominated him to serve as administrator of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. He holds an associate's degree in criminal justice from North Florida College and a bachelor's degree in public administration from Flagler College. He's a proud father of Brett and Bentley. And when he's not working, you'll likely find him spending time with family and friends, a little bit of golf, working outdoors, traveling, and watching college football. Would you please welcome Derek Bars. Derek, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for allowing me to be here, Jay. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And, you know, I do have to tell you that whenever I'm around you, and we don't get an opportunity to be around each other that often, but when we do, there's always such a wonderful, positive energy about you. And, you know, before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about how we make people feel, right, when we're having a conversation or when we're around people. And you're one of those people who, after I finished having a conversation with you, I walk away just saying, you know what, that's someone who I want to spend more time with. Because of not only your energy, but the way you make people feel. So I just wanted you to know that from a personal perspective, that's how you come across to me. And I am grateful for you, and I appreciate
so much.
You.
Well, I would say that is reciprocated, if you will, for sure. It's been great to get to know you over the years, especially through Tiger Bay and other organizations through the community. So thank you for that compliment. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So I figured to kick things off, maybe a good starting point would be for you to share with all of us who's been the biggest role model in your life, and tell me about that person's impact on you.
Well, I'm fortunate to say that I have a lot of those in my life. I've been so fortunate to have a lot of people who have touched me at different stages of my life, you know, from being a young boy all the way up until now. But I'll start off with three main ones that I think are really important in my life.
Okay.
The first one, I would say my parents, the first one, and both my mom and my dad. But I use a lot of isms from my dad. Okay. My dad has a lot of different sayings and things of that nature that I like to take with me. And just recently, just for example, he would say, now, when you go to Washington, he says, now, don't forget where you come from. He said, always remember where you come from, and always remember to take care of people, and always treat people the way you want to be treated. So I try to take that wherever I go. And you mentioned a little bit about how you try to make people feel. People have always treated me well for the most part. That doesn't mean that I haven't at some times in my life, but I would say that I try to take what my daddy has taught me of how do you treat people. He used to always tell me, so you treat the lowest person in the organization the same way you do the person that runs the organization. Because, you know, he always used to say, you never know who might be your boss one day.
That's right.
But he also said it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
And then my mother was probably one of the biggest supporters that I had. I really miss her so much. She kept me and my sisters on our toes. I can tell you that all the time. But she was always one of the biggest supporters that I had, and no matter what I did. So I truly miss my mom a whole lot. And the next one I would say is my grandmother, my dad's mother. Her name was Lavinia.
Okay.
But my cousins and I would always say that she was the true Miss America in our lives. And the reason why I say that, because my grandmother's first name was America. So America Lavinia. So she was always our Miss America.
That's so good.
But my grandmother, when I was growing up, I mean, we lived in rural Madison County. It's a great place to live, great place to grow up, where people looked out for each other. My aunt owned a drugstore, My mother worked at a local bank. My granddaddy worked at a local mill and area like that. So both of my parents were both from the same county that I grew up in.
Okay.
But it didn't matter. You walked into my grandmother's house, and I watched this as a young age. You walked into her house. You were not entering that house. You're not leaving that house without her giving you a hug and loving on you and caring for you and feeding you. I can promise you that, because I was a whole lot heavier back then. But she really wanted to make sure that you were special. And I remember growing up, sitting in their mobile home that they lived in, and she has a Bible, and it had tape all over it, and it had electrical tape, and it was just a mess if you think about it. I remember looking at my grandmother and saying, "What is that? What is this that you're?" I was young. I didn't realize exactly that she was reading the Bible at the time. She said, "Son," she says, "I need this. This is what gives me life." I was thinking, how does this old book give you life? But that book, later on, what she taught me, what was in that book, and what it meant to her, and then what it has meant to me in my life, and as I carry on throughout my life and my journey of how important God is and how much faith is important in my life. And she taught that to me in the beginning stages of that old, worn-out book that was put together through duct tape and electrical tape.
Do you know what ended up happening with that particular Bible?
I do. My aunt, who will be 99 years old next month, has it in her home in Texas.
Amazing.
So when I go and visit her this coming month for her birthday, I will make sure that hopefully one day that ends up at my house. But I do have a Bible that is one of my grandmother's Bibles. I do have that, and I was fortunate enough to use that Bible when I was sworn in as the Flagler County School Board recently. So she had a couple, but the one that I'm speaking of was very special.
Beautiful. Well, my wish for you is that ends up in your hands
at
the appropriate time when it was meant to be.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about what life was like for you as a child. What give us a sense. Let's go behind the curtains a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what Derek was like. Were you a rule follower? Were you a good kid? I mean, you mentioned that your mom, of course, kept you and your siblings in line. But tell me a little bit about you.
I would say yes. My sister's probably going to be listening right now because she lives locally here. But she was more rambunctious than any of us. But I was a rule follower. Yes. Mm-hmm. You live in a small town like where I grew up. If you went somewhere and you got in trouble, it wasn't going to be long before your mom and daddy were going to find out about it. So
everybody knew about it.
So the best thing for you to do is just to do the right thing. So my first grade teacher was my first grade teacher's husband was my wife, but my mother's boss at the bank.
Okay.
So I remember one time getting in trouble in first grade, and it didn't take long before my mom knew it that I was in trouble. So I learned pretty young age that the best thing to do is just follow the rules and do what you're supposed to do. And but it was great. I mean, it was a great place to live. I had the sheriff at the time. His name was Joe Peavy. Was another one of my. That was the other person who had so much influence in my life. The sheriff had been there. He was the sheriff for 28 years, a long time. But he really took me under his wing at a young age, and I knew from there that I wanted to be in law enforcement. But it was more than just law enforcement to me. It was about serving your community. Mm. It was more about, he used the word missionary work. You know, it was about taking care of people more that I looked into that. Go out and see Miss Smith, for example. Take care of her. What does she need? If Mr. So-and-so was out on his tractor, plowing the field, stop and go talk to him to see if he needs anything. It was more than just law enforcement. It was really, really serving your community. And so it was ingrained in me. I wanted to do that. Had such a great relationship with him. It was a family connection that we had between he and I, and he really allowed me to, at a young age, to do things that I don't think a lot of young folks would be able to do today.
Let me ask you two questions about that.
Sure.
One, at what age or at what point did you know that law enforcement was something that you wanted to pursue? So so share that with us, and then also I'd love for you to share one of the key lessons you learned from Joe about leadership. So as he was the sheriff and took you under his wings, what were you learning? What was the key thing that you learned about leadership through him? So first, when did you know that you wanted to get into law enforcement? What age were you?
I would say probably about 10 or 11.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So just tell me, before you answer the question about leadership, tell me, what was it about law enforcement at 10 years old that you're like, oh, this is something that I can really sink my teeth in and want to get involved in?
I think that it was more him than it was anything else. It was him and saying, "Hey, you want to do these things?" And me just kind of gravitating towards him. He was that mentor person. Even at a young age, he took time with me and spending time with me and showing me what it was like to have someone to, show interest in you, especially at that young age.
Sure.
Especially someone of that stature at that time. He was, everyone in that community. I mean, he was the leader of that of the town, of the county. There was no doubt about it. He was the leader. If anything got done outside, not just in the sheriff's office, but anywhere in that county, it was through him. He was that influential at that particular time in history.
Interesting. So then let's talk about the big leadership lesson. When you think about all the different lessons you took away from him, what was one that just stands out in terms of leadership for you?
There are a lot, but I will have to say that the one piece is the compassion piece. No matter where you were in life, the ups and the downs, he had compassion about those individuals. Whether you had just been arrested or whether you were down on your luck in the community, or if it was someone who may have just passed away, for example, what can we do or what could he do to be able to support that? In that community. And that's why I say it's more than just law enforcement. Sure. I mean, it was truly, and I don't like to just use this lightly, but taking care of people and taking care of your community, it was ingrained. It was natural. It wasn't something that you just had to learn necessarily. It just seemed like it was natural, and that's what you did. So I would say the compassion piece is really the part of that leadership to me, and that gives you a better understanding of where people are coming from. Yeah. Try to put yourself in their shoes. You don't have to always be overbearing.
Absolutely. And
you can listen. I think that is so, so, so important, that we must listen to all sides, no matter what they are. We are not always going to agree on things, and that was something that I learned from him. We're not always going to agree on every single topic. But we're going to treat people with respect. We're going to treat people with dignity. And again, going back to, we're going to listen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful skills, and I call it a skill because it is something that we can learn and that we can improve upon. But I think it is one of the most important skills for us to continue to develop: deep listening, active listening, not listening to respond, but listening to understand. So to your point, listening to different views, listening to different beliefs, and understanding that, as you already stated, we may not agree on everything, and that's quite all right. You and I don't agree on everything. We haven't had those conversations, but there's no question that there are things that we are going to disagree on. But here's the one thing I know. There are so many more things that we can agree on in areas where I respect you as a human being, someone who shows up doing your best every day and looking to build community and looking to improve. Those are things that I look for because, number one, it's about being a good human being and recognizing that. And then let's use that as the baseline to grow from.
Absolutely.
So we're going to hit pause on our conversation, my friend. You are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. Don't you go anywhere. We will be right back.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
Hey, it's Jay with Thomas Media Solutions. Join us every Monday night from 6 to 8 at Tortugas in Flagler Beach for the best live entertainment around. We do several rounds of general knowledge trivia. That means it's trivia for everyone. It just doesn't get any better than this. If you're looking for the best food, the best drinks, the best people, and the best entertainment around, Tortugas is the place to be. Make sure to get there early to get a seat. See you there. This is Jay Shear. Are you a business owner or entrepreneur trying to figure out how to improve and achieve greater results? If so, I'm speaking to you. I provide the tools, coaching, and accountability you need to gain clarity around your personal and professional goals, remove the excuses holding you back, build the mindset, leadership skills, and proven strategies to grow your business and become the best version of yourself. To learn more or to apply for my coaching services, call 904-236-0431 or visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com. All right, we're back. And again, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am in the studio today with my very special guest, Derek Bars. What a great conversation we're having so far. We're going to keep that conversation going right now. So, Derek, before the break, we were talking about key role models in your life, some lessons that you learned. You were talking about one of the biggest mentors that you've had, and what you learned about leadership from Joe Peavy. And you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to explore a little more deeply. So you talked about compassion as being one of the big leadership lessons that you learned from him. And that, realizing that we all go through ups and downs, and the way that compassion played a role when you see or when you experience those challenges that people face. So two things that I want to talk about here. Number one would be the power of mentorship. But before we get to that, I want to talk about compassion, life's ups and downs. I would love it if you would share with all of us what one of life's most difficult challenges is that you personally have faced, and what you learned about yourself through that experience.
Well, I'm like everyone else, Jay. We all have our ups and downs, and I feel like that I've tried to be able to portray that in a public setting of showing, no matter what those life's challenges are in your, whether they're personal, whether it's losing your mother. It's probably say one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through is losing a mother who was also my friend. I would say divorce has been hard, but it's also taught me a lot again about care and love, and again going back to the compassion piece, that we can all work together, and we can have differences, but we can still work together.
Absolutely.
But then, the hurt and the pain that you face whenever you have death. I remember my dad telling me, years ago when my grandmother passed away. He said, life will never be the same for me again. When you lose your mother, that's a piece of you that goes away. It's hard to, or never is replaced, if you will. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any idea what he was talking about, but I know that now. I understand that's a pain that you deal with every day. It's an overcoming of that, but he was absolutely right.
So share with us then, so two big painful moments, obviously losing a parent, losing your mother. And I lost, today is, we're toward the end of July. I lost my father a year ago in 2 days. Well, thank you. So dealing with that type of pain, and then also the pain of going through a breakup, a marital breakup in this particular case. What, as you think back on both of those situations, what did you learn about yourself as you have dealt with both of those?
Well, a lot of times, sometimes we can get so wrapped up in ourselves. And I never thought about wanting to say I want to wrap up in myself, but, we go through life, and sometimes you have to step back, is my point. Sometimes you have to step back and say, you need to take a breather. You need to look at things outside from a bigger perspective besides just inside your little lane or inside your little bubble. There's more out that you need to be thinking about. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think that in my case, sometimes you may be chasing something. Maybe you're chasing a dream. Maybe you're chasing a career. You're chasing a job or something like that. And then there's this balance piece. And that's where I wanted to kind of talk about is the balance. And sometimes you can be unbalanced. And over the course of my life, I have thought I was being balanced, but I think that was just my misconception of what balance looked like.
Well, also, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think about that often, because we see our life through our eyes, through our perspective. What we don't always take into consideration are the people that are around our circle, right? So family members, spouse, children, etc. And ego can play a big role as, we're building careers and we're growing and all those things. So that balance piece, that's a really interesting one. Do you feel that today, based on what you've learned about yourself and the experiences that you've been through, are you better balanced in terms of career, family, spirituality, health, all of those big buckets of life?
No. Because I always think that there is a way for us to always constantly improve. And I think sometimes you get overwhelmed in a lot of those different and those little buckets that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I can have seen where I have been putting more into one compared to the other at times. But I do try. Yes, I do. I really do try to do a lot better than I used to in the past. But I do have a drive to do things, and there's, to try to do well, you got to have a drive. You got to get up and you got to go, and you got to get up and go to do the things that are hard. And hard is, and then I've heard people say, well, you got to pick your hard too.
That's true.
So, if you don't exercise, you're going to pick your hard. If you don't spend time with your family, you're going to pick your hard.
That's right.
If you don't work hard at your job, you're going to pick your hard.
For sure.
And so there's this, and it's very difficult. It really, really is difficult, because it goes back to this compassion to make how you want to make people feel. You want to make people feel like they're important no matter where you are. But you also have to, and this is where I've struggled a little bit in my life, and I'm sure other people have as well, is it's okay to take care of yourself. It's not being selfish for you to do that. You have to take care of yourself, and then for you to be able to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself.
That is so true. And for all of you that are watching and listening right now, I hope you heard those words. And the interesting thing about that, and it goes back to that analogy of the oxygen mask on the plane, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot be able to effectively and sustainably take care of others.
That's right.
And we hear it, and I'm hearing your words. I'm hearing you share that with me and share with all the others that are watching and listening right now. My question to each of you is, are you going to actually do something with the words that you're hearing? So take action, right? Because nothing changes until you change something. So number one, take care of yourself. I mean, I can tell you right now, there's some lessons that have been shared through this conversation right now that I'm making notes on. Some of them are reminders, and some of them are newer to me. But it's what you're going to do with the information that matters. So thank you for sharing that. So I want to talk about the power of mentorship here for a moment, because you have not only been mentored by others, but you've also been a mentor for many other individuals, and you've been mentoring for years, and you still mentor today. Tell me why mentorship is so important to you, and how that mentor-mentee relationship, in your experience, how that should look.
So I've mentored young to older, I guess, if you will. But I will say that mentorship is really having someone in your corner, someone who you can rely on during these times. We're talking about some of the harder times, and even during the good times. But whenever you're down, you need to have someone that you can call upon to be able to help you. It's building a network of people that can help you get from point A to point B, whatever that happens to look like, or help you with some balance that we've talked about. But you never get through life without other people. You don't have success. It doesn't just, I don't think it just comes. I don't believe that. I believe that it is helping people where they are to kind of get them to the next level where they want to be.
Great.
And sometimes people don't know where they want to be, and you have to help them, give them some options of what's out there, what's available. Because there's so many options that are out there for people that maybe they just do not know what is there for them, and you can help them, or at least, and one thing I like to say is, I may not know how to do something, but I know a guy that knows a guy. And I think that is powerful. I don't know anything about your situation, but I know a guy that does. So let me put you in contact with that person that will maybe be able to help you along the way.
That's so powerful.
And that's important, but you never get through life without others being able to help you. And maybe you'll take some of those nuggets with you with some of that help that they've given you.
That's so true. You know, I found through my mentorship and through those that I have mentored through the years that often I get so much more out of the relationship than I pour into it. And that always astounds me when I walk away from a situation like that and say, oh my gosh, this really was a life changer. That individual has impacted me in more ways than I could have imagined.
And always let them know how much you appreciate them.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Whether Absolutely. It's I'm a handwritten note kind of guy, so I still do that. I write notes to people and things of that nature. It's amazing what people will say. I can't believe you sent a note, or it's taking the time to let them know that they're special.
Absolutely. So, Derek, as we are wrapping up our conversation, I've got one final question for you, and your response on this needs to be brief and succinct.
Okay.
So here we go. If you had the opportunity to ask one question of any one person who's either living or no longer living, first, who would that person be? And then secondly, what is the one question? So the name and then the question you would want to ask.
I got to be quick with this quick answer because I don't really know.
First thing that comes to mind.
I would go, I guess I would go back to my mom.
Okay. What would you ask your mom?
And I would say, Mom, tell me how you made it through the hardest time in your life, and who was your mentor? So if I got 2 seconds, I'll say I'm trying to ask my dad more questions now while he's still with me. And I'm writing these things down in a book that I have so I can carry that on to my kids and as they get older. So there's a lot of questions that I wish I had asked my mother. And so now I'm trying to make that up with some of the questions that I ask my dad when we have special times together.
Ooh, that is, yeah, I feel the emotion in that one. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Derek, I want to thank you for joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. What a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
You truly are such an extraordinary human being. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, your energy, your courage, your ability to find your hard and get after it every single day. And I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this time.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And my friends, I want to thank you so very much for tuning in. We will be back next Saturday morning at 8:30. And until then, keep learning and growing and keep doing the work to reach your potential. Take care, everyone.